Hello, I'm Ethan Chazin, your New York-based organization development coach. Today's webinar is a continuation of an ongoing series of how to unleash your people's untapped potential. And today's talk is on performance and how do you maximize your people's performance in your organization. So the goal of today is to go through some immediately actionable strategies that you and your organization can employ to either continue the work you've already started doing to rethink your people's performance strategy, or to start anew in this process. So I'm going to walk through the strategy step by step. And the first is, when you are bringing new people into your organization, literally from the moment you've extended an offer to them, and you're in the process of onboarding them and going through orientation, from the very beginning of the relationship with your employees, you must set clear expectations. And the expectations are on a number of fronts. The first is performance. It's how you reward, recognize, appreciate. How do you coach, mentor? How do you put them through formal sponsorship programs? Do you get them ready to have career trajectory? All of those expectations need to be framed up front. The other is around your organization's vision, mission, core values. Those have to be from day one implemented or initiated in the relationship that your organization has with your people. The moment that you have your employees start doing work for you, the moment that that process begins, you need to have constant feedback. And the feedback is in two domains. The first is positive feedback. It's real time, it's meaningful, it's using specific examples. So the first is positive feedback that encourages them when they achieve success to understand and see what the success outcome was so they can emulate that experience in their future performance. The second is what we call corrective action. And there's many different ways to do this. One of the more fundamental ways is an acronym called STAR, where the moment that they perform at a level that's not up to your expectations of them, you identify the situation and the task that they were performing, the action that they took, and that subpar result. And then you want to reframe with an alternate approach and an alternate action to achieve a more desirable outcome. So that's the second step in achieving optimal performance, is giving meaningful feedback. Goal setting. I want to be clear about this. In the 14 years that I've done coaching and consulting to over 500 organizations, most do a god-awful job at goal setting. And what I mean by that is simply the goals aren't established on a meaningful basis, meaning your employees are not giving you autonomy they have to set their own goals based on their intrinsic motivation. So right out of the gate, you're hiring people who aren't driven to achieve success themselves. It's not part of their core construct. So the goal setting is arbitrarily, you have to identify and set it for them. And they're not going to own it. They're not going to take ownership and be accountable to the goals. And most often goals, whether they're SMART or stretch or Goldilocks, the goals have in and of themselves no capturing of what's happening in your business, both internally and externally on a day in, day out basis, that make the goals that you set in advance of the new year relatively meaningless. So you want to make goal setting something that's ongoing, it's organic, it evolves day by day, and you want to give ownership and accountability to your people. The next step of performance is rewarding and recognizing them. Again, most organizations I coach with, when I'm brought in to audit their culture and their performance, and I re-architect their recognition programs, here's the fundamental challenge that exists. All of your people are fundamentally different, which means a person on day one with you, or maybe year 2 or year 5, their wants, needs, desires change over time. So the way to reward them or recognize them is unique to them, and their wants, needs, desires, but it'll also evolve over time. Maybe they come in to your organization, start work for you right out of college, and then they stay with you for a while and they start a family. They get married and start a family, or maybe they relocate. There are circumstances that are going to change in their career trajectory with you, and therefore you need to evolve your reward and recognition, but also starting out with a deep level understanding of each of your employees' 5 level of needs. And I've talked about this in other training sessions, but get to know your people on a deep level. Those 5 level of needs are when you talk to them about rewarding them and recognizing them in a meaningful fashion, so it motivates them to perform at a higher level. You'll ask them what they want and need, and they'll tell you that's a stated need. And it may or may not have very little basis in reality, or they may be lying, either intentionally or unintentionally. So you want to do a little bit of deeper dive to make sure you understand what they really want and need to get to their real level of need. That's the second level. And most organizations, as they cultivate a recognition and reward program, to the extent that they do any of this, they stop after the real needs. I'm suggesting you go farther. What are they not telling you? Most of what your employees care about, getting out of you, the relationship between the employee and employer, most of their needs, they don't tell you, and you don't ask. So that third level of unstated need is where you cultivate a relationship of trust and empathy, where you get to go a little bit deeper. So after that third level of getting to the needs that they haven't told you up front, the stated needs are the delight needs. As they're there for you through the probationary period of 90 days, and then the first fiscal quarter, and then the second and third quarter, you get through a year, you do the review, and then you go into year 2, they evolve the relationship with you, and vice versa. So as you cultivate a deeper relationship with them, you'll start to offer them things in terms of training, work from home, a more flexible hybrid work schedule, paid time off, maternity, paternity leave, going on a sabbatical if they want to study abroad or take a class or get a professional accreditation or certification. So the fourth level of need is the delight need. Basically, the reaction that they have when you offer to recognize and reward them is, wow, you would do that for me, which gets to ultimately the fifth deepest level of need. When you reach this with your employees, you're in a world-class organization. And I wrote the book on this, so I understand a little bit about organizations who understand the value of their people and maximizing their performance so that they go to the fifth level, which is what we call secret needs. Your employees don't articulate with you a grand vision of how they see themselves in the future at all, because you haven't probed, you haven't built trust, you haven't exhibited empathy, you haven't given them a career and professional development trajectory. But if you do that, if you create a culture predicated on performance, your employees will start to, with you, uncover the deepest level secret needs they wouldn't normally share with you, because they don't even tell themselves, because they wouldn't expect an organization to care enough about them. Training and development, there's 2 types. There's on the job, it's skills based. It's here's the technical requirements you need to perform this role at a higher level. And then there's another kind of training and development, which is more longer term. If you're thinking about advancing them internally through promotions, you coach and mentor them. You want to put them up for a promotion next year or in 5 years' time. That future focus is less of technical skills and more professional development skills. Things like, I don't know, effective communication, collaboration, conflict resolution, leadership skills, problem solving, critical thinking, creativity. All of those less immediate, more longer scope initiatives around developing your people, they all fall under a formal documented training and development program, which goes across the functions of your organization, right? Customer care, marketing, finance, operations, HR. So you go across the functions and you go up and down at the 3 levels. Your senior leadership team can benefit from training and development. Your middle management team can benefit, as well as in the organizational pyramid structure, those who are lower down the rungs in more client-facing roles. Employee involvement. I've done another video on this. We call it engagement. You want your people to be actively engaged. Involved meaning, have you funded Have you put into your budget for this year, maybe a subsequent year, and planning purposes, a formal idea generation program? Meaning, are you paying your people to have blue sky or time dedicated away from their day-to-day work to think about big training, big picture, future considerations, new products you offer, new services, ways to reduce costs, become more efficient, revisit your policies, procedures, and processes? So the employee involvement is a way to get them engaged. Another way to ensure employee involvement is to give them more autonomy. People feel the most emotionally invested in your organization and the culture and their work when they own it. So autonomy is on 4 levels. You let them frame and develop and control what they work on, where they work from, when they do the work, and who they work with. So all of that employee involvement is getting them actively engaged. The last piece of involvement is less about the work and more about the culture. Do you have employee enterprise or resource groups? Do you have employee groups that are founded around outside hobbies, interests, passions, volunteer work, community engagement? Do you have Slack channels, tools, resources, process of communication to get them interacting? All of that is a big bucket of initiatives around employee involvement. Your performance improvement or performance management planning is pretty straightforward, and most organizations stink at it. Performance improvement is taking an individual or a team or the totality of all your workers, whether you have 5 or 50,000, and saying, we have an architected, formal, documented flow process for, depending on where they are organizationally at those 3 levels, senior leadership, middle management, or frontline staff, across functions, whether they're in marketing, HR, operations, finance, doesn't matter. And wherever they are in their stage of their development, if they're literally just joining you in orientation, or they've been with you 25 years, every single employee should have a performance improvement plan. It's doing the work they're currently doing more effectively. And it's also with a view towards the future. Where do they see themselves? It may be in the same role, but at a higher level of performance. It may be in a different role. Maybe it's job sharing. Maybe you have them time sharing X% of their time in their standard role, and you're getting them exposure in other functional teams to get a broader view of the organization. Career development opportunities sound like this. Most organizations are woefully unprepared in the 21st century to offer this. And that's why many organizations are struggling to find and keep top talent, and they falsely claim there's a war on talent. That's BS. There is no war on talent. There are organizations who excel at doing all of these kind of performance-based initiatives and those who don't. Specific to career development, this gets back to those conversations around the 5 levels of need and training and development. They're all interrelated, by the way, all these performance tools. Career development sounds like this. I, as a manager, which, by the way, I consider a bad word, but I, as a manager, hoping to become a leader, I, as a leader or aspiring to be a leader, make it my mission to get to know all of the people underneath me, to understand where they see themselves now. And I have a career development plan for all of them. Where do they want to go in the next 3 months, the next year, 2 years, 5 years? And I work with them to hold them accountable, to give them all the tools, resources, support they need to achieve all of their career development initiatives. I'm not forcing them. That's management. Leadership is a rising tide lifts all boats. And that's what leadership is around, is identifying the amazing aspects of all your people and having them rise up with you. The next set of performance initiatives that we're going to talk about is giving them the tools to have a flexible work arrangement. What does that mean? We live in a post-COVID, post-global pandemic world where we're giving people more options rather than you must come into the office. Hybrid, hotel, work from a physical location, but somewhere other than our home office, work virtually. Most organizations have been grappling with this during and after COVID because it's the new state of work. And it's what your workforce, if you think about 5 generations of employees under one roof, As boomers and matures exit tens of thousands every day from the American workforce, those roles, those jobs are being filled with Gen Zs and millennials. Those generations have an entirely different level of expectation about the employee-employer contract. It's more of a mutual symbiotic relationship. And those newer to the workforce professionals have an expectation of a more flexible workplace environment. And if you want top talent, you need to acquiesce. Leadership. Man, in the last 14 years that I've been a coach and consultant, and I've worked with organizations to unleash their untapped potential, I've come to the realization that most people just don't understand leadership, or they don't care organizationally about implementing it. Be selfish if you have to. If you can't think altruistically about the benefit gained from bringing in the most amazing people through your talent acquisition and then keeping them by cultivating leadership on the job, if you can't do it altruistically, be selfish from the perspective of an EROI, an employee return on investment, by cultivating a universe, a workforce of leaders versus managers. You're going to maximize people's aggregate collective performance, which has a positive, measurable impact on productivity and profitability. I've talked a lot about leadership versus management. I'm going to sidebar here and just explain it at a high level. Management is about control. Whether it's the Latin mano agere or the French management, the derivation of management precursor from a prior foregone era. That era is about command control. It's a pyramid. Control is vested at the top and trickles down as needed and almost never comes up. In the 21st century, with a global workforce, constant transforming technologies, that structure has a lot of bureaucratic layers removed, and it's a more flat matrix distributed organization. Leadership has got to be infused throughout. It just does. It means less control, more empowerment. That's the transition in this 21st century from management to leadership. Collaboration, all great organizations do it. Wegmans, Nucor Steel, Samsung, Disney, Marriott, doesn't matter. All of the most financially successful organizations have team-driven organizational structure, and often self-directed teams. All that means is in the 21st century, you remove the management from it, and you give people the power, tools, and team building they need to work effectively. We have technology, work share tools, apps, flow processes. All of the technology is transforming into collaboration. We need organizations to culturally shift from command control management to more distributed, autonomous, collaborative work. When somebody in your team, in your organization, has a performance issue, oftentimes we let that slide. Oh, I'll get to it during the next review. No, this gets back to giving corrective versus positive feedback. Performance issues have to be identified immediately because it's empathetic and equitable to the employee as a precursor to getting them on the right path again. More often than not, we see some subpar performance, we wait, and then it's a very draconian kind of the stick versus the carrot. We want to address performance issues immediately and in an empathetic, proactive perspective. Well-being initiatives, again, this is what Gen Zs and millennials want, is they want you to nurture us. We want you to take care of us mind and body. And we also care about the values and behaviors of the organization. Your vision, mission, core values need to reflect the expectations of your top people, and they watch how you engage with the stakeholders in your communities. The places of business you exist in, they watch how you interact in terms of volunteer work, community work, interaction with all your stakeholders. Stakeholders are just groups of people who engage in your reputational brand as culture. They're your employees, your clients, for sure. But there's also the media, vendors, partners, government, regulatory agencies, the totality of everybody who interacts with you. Your people need to see that well-being is individual. It's also collective in terms of how you act as an organization. Technology is not the only solution. Technology is an enabler. Another part of my consulting practice over the last decade plus is I've noticed that organizations use technology in lieu of people performance development initiatives. That's actually ass backwards. There's three levers that you're going to be able to pull as applies to use technology effectively. One is strategy. Having a great strategy is wonderful. It's your roadmap. The second piece is operational performance. That's the technology, your systems, processes, tools. Operational efficiency is wonderful. So that's the second level. The third lever that's least often pulled is the people lever. I'm firmly in the camp that believes strategy fails without people. Operations and technology are just that, tools without the right contractor or the right worker, or I'd say without the right artists to use those tools to create masterpieces, right? Your employees are effectively using that technology. And that's why, to optimize performance through technology, you need to make sure that your people are directly involved with telling you what they need. Technology, tools, systems, processes. You want to see an organization that performs at the highest level because you're a culture of rock stars? You give those amazing people you've brought into your organization the tools vis-a-vis technology they need to succeed with direct input from them. Last is employee surveys. This is a joke in most organizations. It's an afterthought. It's a way to check the checklist of human capital management for, let's say, a people audit. Yeah, we survey our people at the end of the year. Don't. It's a waste of time. It's offensive to employees. Instead, survey them every day of the year. And instead of survey, you start a communication that's ongoing daily with your employees. Your surveys are snapshots in time along that 365-day-a-year relationship continuum, whether it's monthly, bi-monthly, every other month, quarterly, at the half year. It's a way to stop and gauge, finger on the pulse of how your people feel. The way to determine what you're surveying them is to understand how your people initiatives fits into your business strategy and your operational plans. That's why employee surveying is all about asking the right questions and getting the right feedback. So having said that, now that we've talked about your people and your performance, I'd like to wrap up today's session by saying I hope you derive some keener understanding of all the tools in your organization's people performance toolkit. As my offer to you, I'd like to make myself available to have a conversation to dive a little bit deeper into your organization's performance initiatives. The best way to reach me, and there's a number of ways, is to contact me directly through email or go to my website, reach out to me by phone, and I'm wishing you much luck in your continued people development initiatives. Thank you for taking the time to join us here today. And oh, by the way, this whole human capital management playlist on our YouTube channel, there's going to be additional videos that we add in other areas of people development. So check back regularly. If you like what you've seen in the video, be sure to give a like and definitely subscribe because we're always adding new videos and best practice shorts to the channel. Thank you. Have a super productive day.